starting off. Can you see that? You can. Good. Okay, this is how to apply for access to the CLF. So the starting of the process. Normally, it's an idea for an experiment. That idea should require or greatly benefit from a laser-based technique. So potentially one of the ones we've already discussed. It can be blue sky, it can be off the wall, left field. If it's that sort of experiment, yes, it's high risk, but potentially it could be high gain in terms of what the outputs are. But also it could be part of your research program. It could be something you know really well, you know all of the theoretical stuff, you've modeled the behavior, you know what you're expecting, you just haven't got the facilities to be able to do the experiments to support that. So I would say before you get any further, you should really discuss with one of our facility scientists at the Central Laser Facility. So we have, as I said before, 120 members of staff. That's hard to know who to speak to, but that's where the STFC Air Quality Network can come in, and you can talk to either myself, Sarah or Fleur with the idea of saying, right, I want to do this experiment. Who do I go and see? Is this realistic? Can it be done? How do we go about delivering a scientific case that may convince someone to give us time on one of our instruments? So we've been through the potential techniques. So typically things like aerosol droplet analysis, Raman microspectroscopy for maybe microbeads and microplastics, laser microscopy for imaging, so imaging of cells, super resolution techniques. There's a technique called spatially offset Raman, which I haven't discussed so far. It's the bottom picture on the right hand side. This was a technique where you can you can acquire spectra and analysis of the contents of plastic bottles, even opaque plastic bottles. It's now used in airport scanners. So you put your bottle inside or bottle of water inside the scanner, and it will tell you if it's water or if it's something that's different from that. Now that may be interesting in terms of, yes, that maybe could be a way of analyzing filters, should we say, and putting a filter in this device. It doesn't care about the polymer surrounds, it just measures what the spectroscopy is of the contents of that filter. We've looked at various other things such as tychography as well. So there's the techniques. There will be a call twice a year. That call, I will make sure that Fleur has got access to it and can publish it on the STFC Air Quality Network website. That way everyone can get to see it. It will tell you when the call is, what the deadline is, and which of the various facilities are available and what program mode they're in. So let's go and describe the program mode. There are effectively 5 types of access. Direct access. This requires 2 sides of an A4 scientific case. It will be peer reviewed, and the maximum time you can apply for is 4 weeks every 6 months. There is a program access. This normally follows if you've had 2 or 3 successful direct accesses, you may well want to go a program access. This is a much more in-depth scientific case. It's 6 sides of A4. It will be peer reviewed. That can be as much as 5-year periods, where you have 4 weeks every 6 months in that 5-year period to do your research. So that's quite a chunk of our time, quite a commitment for the facility to be delivering this particular science. We also have proof of concept. That is a rapid access. That is typically half a day or a day, where you will try and use the facility just to try and get sufficient results to support a direct access application. If you're new to the field, you want to take a Raman spectra of PET as it's approaching a lung surfactant, and you get that spectra from 1 day providing a sample, then actually that can go into your direct access case, which may give more belief from the review panel that you can actually do the experiment. So that's normally a very short-term access. That is at the basically the group leader discretion on which accesses you get for that. And commercial or industry access, we have a business manager. We can discuss what our various going rates are for being able to go into the facility. If you purely want to have access for your own ends in terms of not sharing any data, and all that data goes to you and there's confidentiality, it tends to cost a bit more than if you're prepared to come in and share some of the data and publish it in an open fashion. We also have European access through Laser Labs Europe. This is similar to the direct access, but it's for, it says in the tin, for European researchers only. So then once you've discussed your experiments, the sort of ideas you've got, you thought to yourself, yes, okay, direct access is the way I'd like, which is the way most people go. Then go to the STFC online application site, and that will give you a range of different facilities that you can choose from. So these are the ones I discussed in the very first slide. These are basically the high power lasers, Artemis, and then we get down to Octopus and Ultra with various sorts of access in terms of direct access, a program access that you've already got approved, or a new program access. That will lead you directly to an online form, and this one is taken from Chang Guo's application. She gave me permission to show you this. Normally these applications are confidential. So Chang was looking at the impacts of inhaled particles on the brain, how particles translocate across the blood-brain barrier. It is a fairly simple technique. It's a very simple application process. You can see there are 7 steps along the top bar here, and then basically a final step at the very end. So it's a new proposal. There's things like the title, the abstract, who's doing that, and it's what facility you require, what funding, as in what grants you may already have that contribute to that you've got in terms of from EPSRC or NERC, the requirements in terms of the instrumentation, what publications you may have already to support your science. There is a £1,000 budget per week of access, so you can define consumables that you need for the experiment. And finally, there's a science case upload. The science case is the most important aspect. So the science case is quite prescriptive. It has to have introduction names, any preliminary data, justification for why you want to use the facility. Why don't you have this kit yourself? Why can't you get access to it elsewhere? And also what equipment is requested. You have to have an idea of what you expect the outcome to be. So that can be some kind of, you've got a model, you've got previous work, you have an idea of where the experiment is going. And then finally, the experimental design and methodology. This is largely to do with the timings of the experiment, how long you need, what experiments you intend to perform. So this was Chang's original idea. It's effectively a sketch that we drew out on the STFC Air Quality Network workshop about a year ago, where we were looking at what we could do with the various parts of the facility. And this one was looking at how tiny nanomaterials go through into the olfactory nerve, into the blood-brain barrier, and how we could detect those. We had the discussions in-house, and the best way of doing this technique was using a focused ion beam scanning electron microscope. That is, you take the cells and you put them through an electron microscope that can slice various thin layers off of the cells and then image the nanomaterial in situ from that point. So that's what it looked like as a sketch. This is actually what it turned out as the final application. So it's 2 sides. It has all the various prerequisites in terms of the introduction of names, preliminary data, etc. Typically, it needs to be pitched at a level where the reviewing panel may not be completely expert at your exact experiment. They will have a good understanding of the imaging mechanisms, understanding how the facility works, and they may be biologists, chemists, within that with clearly experience, but may not be exactly what you need. So you need to pitch with a generic, general view of what you're trying to do, so that you can engage with the reviewer, and then you drill down into the details further and further as you go in the application. And finally, you're effectively making a Gantt chart of what you want to do, and defining what you want to do in each of the weeks that you're requesting. That gets to a facility access panel review. Typically 10 to 12 academics are invited to sit on the review panel. There's mixed expertise, as I've said. We are approximately 3 times oversubscribed. That means that applications have to be tensioned, and they're tensioned on scientific merit by the panel. That can be a very tricky and challenging job to do. Often the experiments we have, you can see the variety in the experiments, from looking at how DNA may react and respond to trapping a particle and measuring the polyaromatic hydrocarbon content. A lot of that is comparing, like I always consider it as comparing apples with pears on these. And it's very hard to judge the values of the scientific merit, but they had to try and do a job with that. Once you get over the threshold marking, you can get awarded time. If you're below the threshold, you'll be given feedback comments with a view to trying to improve your application, or maybe gather more data from proof of concept. And once you're awarded time, we'll schedule experiments and experiment time to enable you to actually get access. Your travel and accommodation and all the meals are paid for when you come to the central laser facility. So all the costs are covered from you, and you also get a budget of £1,000 per week in terms of any consumables or samples you may need. Okay, that's a very, again, a whistle-stop tour of how to get facility access. I'd say the strongest thing is, we will help you. CLF staff will help you with this whole process. It's our job to make sure that you have the best application possible, that we advise you on what sort of things the panel may or may not understand, and if it requires greater explanation. But ultimately, we are here to advise, and we'd like to effectively collaborate and make sure everyone would get access. Unfortunately, we can't make sure that can't be done. It has to be tensioned at some point. Okay, I'll finish there on the application process, Sarah.
Thanks, Andy. So, I mean, I guess any specific questions about the application process first, but I think also in this sort of question session, any questions you might have for Adam about anything he spoke about, or about his experience as somebody external using the facility, and anything else that you might feel that you want to ask Andy about before the end. But if we take questions on the application process first, if anybody's got anything specific on that. No. Okay,
I would
then
say there isn't a process for saying, right, okay, we want the whole facility for 6 months because we've got something going on, or some emergency to respond to.
I mean, I had a bit of a question about how does it interact with a UKRI proposal or something like that? Is it seen that you put your UKRI proposal in with the intention that you would use a facility at STFC, and then if you don't get time, you have to have something in that proposal which says what you would do if you're not able to get time? How does it interface with a grant proposal? It's
tricky. We would expect you to put any UKRI grant funding on the proposal to show that you already got support. That significantly strengthens your case if you have got funding already from a UKRI facility. We unfortunately cannot guarantee you'll get access. So during part of your grant, if you want to access the facility, we will write you a cover letter or a letter of support, which will basically say, yes, we support all your work, we'll do all we can to help you, but we still can't guarantee you will definitely get time on the facility. So that can be frustrating. But it's worth considering, and normally people with UKRI grants have a very, very strong chance of getting on.
Okay, any other questions about anything else at all that we've talked about today, or anything to do with the central laser facility?